Good morning, guys. I'm saying good morning is because I got up a little early to make this video for you guys. Because I got a couple emails saying that we needed some more help with the parallel and perpendicular lines. And since I taught it, because it came after Thanksgiving break, some parents, actually, your parents, asked for some videos. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over just writing. I think you have the concept of what kind of slopes parallel and perpendicular lines have. So I'm going to worry more about writing, and then I'm going to do some review problems too for your test, because I think we're still having some issues knowing where to start, where to stop. So if you remember, the slopes of parallel lines are always the same, and then the slopes of perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals. Remember, with opposite reciprocals, we mean if the slope is -3, then the slope of a parallel line would be positive 1/3. Okay. If the slope is -5/2, the slope of a line parallel would be 2/5. So we flip the fraction and then change the sign to its opposite. So this was from your notes the other day. The next two examples are going to be from your notes that you actually took in class. This is going to be, then I'm going to throw some new ones in there. So we're going to asking you to write an equation of a line perpendicular to the given line and that contains point P. So the line, this is our original line that we're starting with, okay? And what we want to do is we want to write an equation of a line through this point, and that's perpendicular. So if we have the equation y equals 1/2 x minus 5, we know that the slope of this line is 1/2. So remember, I used that notation saying the slope of the original is 1/2, O for original, right? And then I used the slope of the perpendicular here. So if my slope of my original line is 1/2, then the slope of my perpendicular, I'm going to flip the 1/2 to be 2/1 and make it its opposite. So my slope is -2. And then we're just going to go and we're going to do what we had. You had that flow chart, and I'm starting with a point of 4, 0. And I know I have a slope of -2. I've got a point and a slope, so I want to use point slope form. Okay, so I got a point and a slope. I'm going to use point slope form. y2 minus y1 equals m times x2 minus x1. And I'm going to plug those things in. Remember, in our point, the x is here, the y is here. Some of you are still getting that confused, and we shouldn't be in Algebra 1. So y minus 0 equals, my slope is going to be -2 times x minus 4. If I wanted this equation in point slope form, I am done. Okay. If the directions tell you to write it in slope intercept form, you need to move on. So you need to know where you started, and you want to know where you ended up. If I want it in slope intercept form, I'm going to distribute my -2, and I'm going to get y minus 0 equals -2x plus 8. And then y minus 0, of course, is just y. So now this here is in slope intercept form. Right. If I wanted to go even further, if I wanted you to transform it into standard form, okay, then I would just add 2x to both sides, and I would get 2x plus y equals 8, and that would be standard form. So when you're taking your test, you need to stop and think, where do I have to start? Where do I want to end up? And I'm just going to say this. Most of you did really, really well on the quiz when we had this. Those that you didn't, you had your forms messed up, and you kept messing up between point slope and slope intercept form. So you need to make sure that you know what those are before the test tomorrow. All right. So now, again, I want to write the equation of a line parallel to the given line and that contains C. So here's my given line, the equation of that line, and here's my point. So my line is y equals negative 3 halves x plus 6. Okay. My slope is this. Because they're parallel, my slope is going to stay the same. So I've got a slope of negative 3 halves and that contains this point or through. They mean the same thing. So the point 6, negative 2. Again, I have a point and a slope. So I'm going to start with point slope form. Okay. So plugging in what I know, y minus a negative 2 equals negative 3 halves times x minus 6. Remember, minus a negative is plus, and if that's all I want is point slope form, I'm done. Okay. If I want slope intercept form, I've got to distribute. So if I want to put it into slope intercept, I'm just going to distribute. I'm going to rewrite this over here. And I'm going to distribute my negative 3 halves. So I get y plus 2 equals negative 3 halves x plus. Some of you are still having trouble with this multiplying fractions. Okay? And it would be negative. So negative and negative is a positive. Remember, I told you that we can cross reduce. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Okay? Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And then I'm just going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get y equals negative 3 halves x plus 7. All right, so those were two of the examples I used in class with you guys. But now let's talk about some more. I'm going to give you some more. Okay. Write an equation of the line parallel to y equals negative 4x plus 6 and through the origin. Okay, remember the origin is the point 0, 0. Okay. And we want it parallel to y equals negative 4x plus 6. Parallel means the same slope. So we want a slope of negative 4. All right. The nice thing about this is there are lots of different ways to remember how to do this. So if I'm going to have an equation through the origin, no matter what that equation is, and I'm just going to say my slope is negative 4, that y-intercept is going to be 0. So the first method I could use is my y-intercept is 0. So I can just plug it. So I've got a y-intercept of 0. I have a slope of negative 4. And then I can just plug it into y equals mx plus b, or my slope intercept form. So y equals negative 4x plus 0, or y equals negative 4x. Okay, and there is the equation of my line. The other thing I could do, if you're not comfortable with that and you don't recognize that, is we could put it into point slope form. Okay, so y minus 0 equals negative 4 times x minus 0. And you're going to get the same thing. So y minus 0 is just y. If I distribute, I get negative 4x plus 0, or y equals negative 4x. So if you miss the fact that the y-intercept is 0, you can just go ahead and use the point slope form. Okay, look at the next example. We want to write an equation in point slope form. So this time I'm telling you what form I want it in. Perpendicular to 2x minus 3y equals 9. Now, we can't tell right off the bat what the slope is in this case, okay? Because it isn't solved for y. If I want to find out what the slope is, I have to solve it for y. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. I'm going to get negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 9. And I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. So I get y equals 2/3 x minus 3. Some of you yesterday when I were talking, you were getting confused about what do I do with that negative 3. You don't do anything with that negative 3. It's one line. We're writing the equation of another line. Okay? And it's going to be, this has a slope of 2/3, but since we want it to be perpendicular, our slope is going to be negative 3/2. And then we said we wanted it through the point of negative 3, 5. So again, I've got a slope and I've got a point. So I'm going to start with point slope form and sub in. So y see, I told you I got up early. It's my original alarm. So y minus 5 equals negative 3/2 times x minus a negative 3, which makes it a positive 3. Okay. So we want it in point slope form. I am done. I don't have to go any further. Done, over, nothing more. So again, you have to know where you're starting and where you want to end, and you need to know those forms. Okay. So now here we're just going to write regular equations. Write an equation in slope-intercept form with a slope of negative 4/5 and a y-intercept of negative 7. Real simple. I've got a slope and a y-intercept. So I'm going to start with slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So m is my slope, y equals negative 4/5 x, y-intercept is negative 7 minus 7. Because this is the form I wanted it in, this is where I'm ending up. Okay. Simple and done. All right. Now we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form with a slope of 4 and through 6, 2. I want it in slope-intercept form, but I don't have an intercept. I have a slope and I have a point. So I got a slope and a point. So that tells me I'm going to use point slope form. Okay. So y2 minus y1 m times x2 minus x1. I know that I'm going over and over this, but you got to know the different forms. So y minus 2 equals 4 times x minus 6. Slope m, x, and y. So now I want it in slope-intercept form. So I've got to transform this equation into slope-intercept form by solving for y. So I'm going to distribute the 4. Y minus 2 equals 4x minus 24. And then I'm just going to add 2 to both sides. And I'm going to get y equals 4x minus 22. Slope-intercept form, remember, was y equals mx plus b. I'm in that form. So I'm done. Okay. Let's do another example. I want to write an equation of the line in standard form with a slope of negative 1/2 and through a point of negative 8/10. Okay, standard form we can never directly substitute in. Remember, it's ax plus by equals c, where a and b and c can't be fractions or can't be decimals. In other words, they're integers. Okay, so I've got a slope of negative 1/2 and through the point negative 8/10. So slope of negative 1/2, point of negative 8/10, point slope form. So when I sub in, I'm going to get y minus 10 equals negative 1/2 times x minus a negative 8, which is positive 8. Okay. I want it in standard form, so I've got to do some transforming. I'm going to distribute y minus 10 equals negative 1/2 x minus 4. And then I'm going to have to get rid of the 2, but I'm just going to combine my constants first by adding 10. So I'm going to get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 6. Okay. Now this is in points or slope intercept form. So I want to get rid of the half. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2. So I'm going to get 2y equals negative 1x plus 6. Okay. Again, I want it in standard form, so both my variables have to come over to the left side. So I'm going to add 1x to both sides. And I'm going to get x plus 2y equals 6. And that's definitely the most lengthy of the processes. Okay. Again, I told you I don't like going that way, but state says we have to. All right. Last stop. Write an equation of a line with the points 5, 8, and 9, 2. So now I just have 2 points. I don't have a slope. I don't have a y-intercept. So what I have to do is I got to find the slope first. So remember, we find the slope by the change in y's over the change in x's. Sorry about that. My wrist got lazy. All right, so my slope is going to be 2 minus 8 over 9 minus 5, which is going to be negative 6 over positive 4, or negative 3/2. All right, so there's my slope. So I've got a slope and I've got a point. It doesn't matter which point you use, okay, because they're the same equations, or they graph the equivalent lines. So if I use the first point and sub in, okay, I've got y minus 8 equals negative 3/2 times x minus 5. And that's using my first point, okay? Or if I use my second point, I've got y minus 2 equals negative 3/2 times x minus 9. If I'm in point slope form, I'm done. Again, if I want to move it to slope intercept, I have to distribute. So I've got y minus 2 equals negative 3/2 x plus 27/2. Okay. Here we don't want to get rid of the fractions, so I'm going to add 2. Adding 2 is the same as adding 4/2. So I get y equals negative 3/2 x plus 31/2. And I'm in slope intercept form. All right. So I have gone over parallel, perpendicular, and I've gone over writing all of the equations of the lines. Okay, the key is know what you have so you know where to start. Okay, know where you want to end up. So it's really important that you know the different forms of those lines. Have a great day, guys, and good luck on your test tomorrow.